What's going on, guys, and welcome to this episode of the Coffee with Sam podcast. This episode is brought to you by Building from the Ground Up. Building from the Ground Up is a complete educational resource and training for all-star cheerleading and dance. BGU are the UK and Europe's leader in safety and technical training, now taught in 4 different countries: the UK, Ireland, Spain, and Canada. Wowzers! Through the hands-on training, BGU coaches learn how to teach correct drills and progressions for stunting, tumbling, basket tosses in a hands-on way with demo athletes in a live gym setting. Ensures you will be delivering safe and effective cheerleading. BGU also specializes in dance courses designed to help teach, train, and qualify coaches to succeed in the all-star dance world, offering courses in pom and jazz and hip hop. These courses are designed for the new dance coach or the cheer coaches who are wanting their first steps into the world of all-star dance. We provide hands-on basic techniques, skills, drills that can be taken away and taken straight into the classroom. Each instructor has a strong background in cheerleading and dance coaching. Using their extensive knowledge, they efficiently communicate the course material in a fun environment. Guys, if you are a novice to an advanced coach, it looks like BGU, Building from the Ground Up, has something for you. So, this episode is brought to you by them. Now let's get into the episode. In this episode, me and Deb we waffled on for 40 to 50 minutes about none of the topics we had planned, but we talked about some class things, from COVID-19 to conspiracy theories about the government to how you can create better sleep and a stronger immune system to help fight the COVID-19. So grab your brew or get out on a walk and roll that intro. Morning.
Morning, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. You?
Good. How's the hair?
It's all right. I need this bit cutting now. It's growing already in like a
Crazy.
week, but yeah, nice. So you've been busy? You've been up to much? A lot of work?
Oh God. I have a really poorly daughter upstairs, like high temperature. Her SATs are fine. Bought a SATs monitor because that really mattered to me. Slight cough, really not feeling well, lots of pain. So she potentially could have this, but of course there's no testing, so you don't know, do you?
Well, no, it's just literally stay inside unless they get really bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, her SATs matter to me, so something chronic, because I've got clients who are doctors and they're all saying that when people come in, and there was an article the other day about COVID being a silent killer, because a lot of people are coming in and seemingly quite well in a way, lots of symptoms not well, but their SATs are so low that the doctor's thinking, shit, it's like, this is a minutes away from organ failure. It's not, but I'm exaggerating on purpose, but why are they walking so okay? And how come they're so okay when their saturation levels aren't what they should be at all? And I need to get this person on oxygen desperately. And that's part of the problem that COVID seems to be doing. It's a bit of a silent killer when it comes to oxygen saturation. So you can buy little SATs monitors like for 20 to 60 quid on Amazon, and hers are really good at the moment, so I'm not going to worry. Mine are lower, but that's because I've had 2 lung clots after chemo and a little bit of radiation burnt the top of my right lung. So I would expect mine to be a bit lower. But if hers go under 90, I'm phoning 111 or possibly an ambulance, because she's got all the other symptoms. But I would want her put on oxygen. So it is interesting.
That's the problem with COVID. Like you've got couples out there that are living together, like elderly couples. One of them's on like struggling, like on ventilators struggling, and the other one's fine walking around, but still got symptoms. But it's
Well, that's
affected
the
one
thing we don't
person more
know.
than the other. Like,
Yeah.
and
Everyone,
I read an article the other day. I think he was a US Olympian. He was 31, and it's actually killed him. and he was fine, fit, Olympian. Like, and you think, well, I'm fit, my immune system's good, I'm gonna be all right. But
It's not whether your immune system's good or bad. It's, although it has some indication, doesn't it? My partner's a doctor as well, so it's always interesting to have these conversations. And we speak about it quite a lot because his firm are working on something that's to do with viruses and what you can do, and because he owns a business as well, a couple of businesses, and it's a big topic of discussion. It's everybody's topic of discussion, isn't it? On and off every day a little bit, because we're bombarded by it on social media, on different things. And it's a difficult one because, you read a lot of stuff. I found it interesting, all the people protesting in America, and then with the pockets where people are protested, they're getting bigger death rates than, coming through, or bigger infection rates coming through. It's like, but some people are so adamant that their view is right, that this is a 5G thing, or it's a conspiracy theory, or it was a made up illness. I mean, Jesus, we're not that clever. Mother Nature is way more clever than us.
yeah,
And
well,
I find interesting correlation with Mother Nature. Like, why is she giving us this glorious sunshine? We're getting, like, is that to help us through in some way? Like, what's it about? It's quite interesting.
well, yeah, we've stopped polluting it.
Yeah.
We've stopped polluting all the air, and there's nowhere near as much pollution going up. Like the skies are clear because there's no reason to make the clouds and all that stuff that it creates all the crappy weather.
It takes quite a while for that impact to really hit, though. So like, you're getting dolphins in Venice, you're getting clearer waters. It's, but to make a long-term impact, a lot of stuff would have to change. But I'm really interested in the way some people believe that it's a conspiracy theory, or it's like we've got telecom engineers being assaulted. There were 120 plus, however many it was, reports of attack on people trying to keep us online, keeping us able to do this sort of thing, to talk with family and with friends. And people are attacking them, saying it's your fault, 5G, you did it. Gosh.
Yeah, we've got a mast not far that obviously cropped up when this all started, because that's when they started to put them up, and that got set on fire a few weeks back. It's like, what? It's mad.
It's a little bit like when you're trying to explain things to people, and people think, the government should do this, the government do that. There was a really interesting program on Channel 4 last night with some of the world's leading experts and some of the UK's leading experts, and saying, what's going to happen, when we're going out, what does it mean? And they're all saying the same thing, and that is, they don't know. They don't know. We don't know enough about this yet. We're not. Will it be antibodies that we create? Oh, they don't know. Will there be a vaccine that's effective? Well, we don't know yet. We're trying. No one knows. And that's difficult, because I look at cheer gyms and I look at sports, and it's sort of like pubs probably won't be open until December. Then where do cheer gyms fall into that? What does that mean? Because if people can't congregate, cheer gyms are very close, aren't they? We're all very close to each other. So does that mean they won't be able to open? What does it mean for them? Or will it be that they're young kids, so they're allowed back in quicker, and those sports for them will be okay, and it will just be older people and social gatherings that don't come back? That not knowing is the awful thing. And I really hope that any gym that does get some money doesn't blow it and really, or think, oh, we'll get some equipment or do stuff. And I'm sure they won't. They're all really good business people. But this could be a lot longer than we think. And I bloody hope it isn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't like to be the guys at the top that have to now make this second decision of opening things back up again, because if they make that decision and then we get this, oh, well, everyone's dying again, you got no chance of telling people to stay back inside again. Mm-hmm. Like if we all go back to normal, say by December, and then it peaks up again, and they say, oh, guys, you've got to stay in now, people are going to be like, no.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? I'm one of those people that got a letter that said you must stay in for 12 weeks and you must do this and you must do that. And I've argued it a few times with people, because I'm well out of chemo. Is that really sensible? The first doctor I spoke to said, no, you're fine. And the second doctor said, no, you're not fine. And it's like, oh, and that's the problem with science. Once it's got a definite set of principles, you work with the unknown in science. We work with what we don't know, don't we? And sometimes it's the same in psychology. Well, we know what we don't know. We know what we know. Let's work with that. And it's all we can do. And it's important to work out what that means. And for me, like, if someone turned around and said to me now, well, that's it, Deb, you now cannot go out until April, May, or when they have something, I'll be like, don't know how I feel about that.
It's weird. Like when it first was coming about, and obviously your not the older generation, so like your 50s, 60s,
Yeah,
they
I'm
were like
54. That's
they were
me.
like you need to, like, they were taking it seriously straight away, whereas
Yeah.
I felt like my generation were a bit like, nah, this won't. We're never gonna have wars. We're never gonna have this plague stuff in our time. That don't happen. So it was very
Yeah.
like, even I did it. I shrugged it off a little bit and was like, ha ha ha, it won't come to us. And it was a bit like, and that's why the first couple of weeks of it was like, this is real. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's true, because I think kids and younger generations haven't. It is interesting, that middle, because the much older generation, some of them didn't take it seriously either.
no,
So
they were
some,
like, I'll fight it. I've done a war. I'm all right.
yeah, I'm going to see my friends. Screw you. You know, and I understand everyone's aspect of that. And at the end of the day, the government have given us a set of very clear rules. People say they're not clear. They are. That there was a police report that came out a couple of weeks ago that very clearly stated, there was a video going around of a woman sitting on a park bench. Like, you know, what's a reasonable time to sit on a park bench, and shouldn't you? They've covered it. It's there. You can find it as a link. I can send it to you if you want it, if you haven't seen it. It's pretty clear,
No, I've
really.
seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
However, we're all going to bargain, aren't we? And this is what humans do, especially when they're grieving. We bargain, we work out what we can do, what we can't do. And then we say things like, I know, but I'm really careful. It's okay. Or we say things like, yeah, but I wash my hands all the time. And I really think, I don't know, like, masks may come in or may not. I've already pre-bought masks ages ago when this all first started, and I had some left over from chemo anyway. And I've bought all my kids masks with charcoal reusable pads and stuff for when and if it ever comes out, because that might be the only way that we end up stopping people infecting other people if people want to go out. So, like, my kids could, like, I've already done that, because that's where other countries have gone. So I'm like, oh, I'm
I just
curious about
hope.
that.
I hope it doesn't like
Can't see cheering marks.
human contact doesn't disappear because people are afraid. So I was saying this to a friend the other day, that I think, like, the handshake is something that, as English people, we have one thing we've got left, apart from the monarchy, where, like, we're a good, strong handshake. And I hope that doesn't disappear because people are scared to.
Well, my family is Swiss. So, like, originally my mum's family is Swiss, and my dad descends from Russians and, you know, Poles. So I'm a bit of a mongrel, really. My mum only came over, so I'm only second generation English on her side and third generation on the other, third or fourth. So I'm a bit of a mixture. But, like, when you say goodbye in Switzerland, you have to leave about half an hour at the end of a
Because you got
party
to
or
hug
a gathering.
everyone.
Right. Well, you've got to give them 3 kisses each and every time. And it's like, well, that'd be interesting if that goes. I mean, you'll gain half an hour to be able to leave a party. But, you know, there are some quintessential English things, and I don't think lots of them will go. Our stiff upper lip is still very British. Our capacity to cope in a crisis, our ability to queue. We don't talk about sex. We don't talk about money. If you ask someone what they earn in England, well, I don't talk about that sort of thing. What do you want to know that for? Or ask them about their sex life. And, you know, doctors in the UK on average, well, if you tell them that you smoke, they're probably double what you say. But if you tell them you have a lot of sex, they're probably half what you say, you know, because it's just not true, probably. And we don't talk about death either. We're not good at death. And this is impacting all of us. And we're not very good, funny enough, because we spoke about disappointment, whether we should cover that or not. We're not very good at disappointment either. We like things to be very properly done, and it's the way it is, and that's, we all know what we're doing, and then that's okay, because that's the British way to do things. We like to plan and get on with things. You know, you'll see us with our shopping lists, and you'll see us with our, you know, our, right, this is going to happen then, and this is all very sorted.
I do.
Jolly good at planning.
I do think there was a country. It shocked me, like the way America are being now, because they're obviously demonstrating because of they're now running out of money and they
I
need to go back to
heard, and
work.
it could be gossip, but there's also there's a march planned in the UK apparently.
And
Are
I
we
thought,
that different?
yeah, I was about to say I thought we'd handled it quite well, because if you'd have asked me 4 months ago if anyone in England would listen if were told to stay inside or be locked down, I'd be like, nah.
Oh no, England's quite good at being told what to do. We like a rule, the English. On average, there's a really good book called Watching the English. which is all about the British cultural ways of doing things. And there's this thing called epigenetics, which also influences maybe future generations of how we do things, because it's been like this for hundreds of years. It's quite ingrained in us, and genetics pass a message, especially if somebody has had a trauma or a shock, that there are messages that are passed through our DNA. Mitochondria, all sorts of stuff, brain, it's fascinating stuff. Transgenerational scripting from a psychological perspective, and epigenetics from a scientific perspective. Probably one of my favorite subjects, to be honest. A bit boring, a bit geeky, but I love it. And so there are cultural messages that come through generations in countries, and we're quite stoic, the British. Our stiff upper lip, our ability to cope. We will do as we're told. We will celebrate. We will have a 25th Jubilee, or no, not 25th, 75th, whatever it is. We will do those things because we are British. It's part of our identity.
Well, if they do have a march, then I'll be very sad. I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, me too.
Because we're all in this, unless you can do like you've done, and I've moved some of my business online, then everyone's struggling. So why be those idiots? And it's just going to go up again. Like you say, if they keep doing it, like you said in America, they're getting stats where more people are dying in those areas because they're commenting.
Those idiots think you're an idiot, and this is the problem with the way we deal and handle each other. You've got people who are convinced that the moon landing never happened. You've got conspiracy theorists who believe that 9/11 was created by Americans. You've got conspiracy theorists who argue that Hitler is still alive somewhere and is very fine and lived forever afterwards. You've got people who believe that certain school, we've got them in the UK as well. So in America, there's a particular guy who believes that a lot of the school shootings are set up. We've got people over here, the way we talk about, conspiracy theories and different things, like this whole 5G principle, like this was a created illness as a form of, to cull people or whatever. There are so many conspiracy theories. And the problem is we all think we're right. So psychologically, when we argue something, we come in with a view of you're wrong rather than talk to me about what you're thinking. And people disbelieve science, even at this point. Like, you look at a satellite picture of the world, how it is very obviously round. However, the other person who's arguing with me say, well, it's very obviously flat because can't you see the horizon? Look at the end, you'll fall off. There is a level. And you can talk about the way the world is shaped. You can talk about how we stay on it, what it means, why time zones, where the sun comes in, where the moon comes out. There's just no arguing though, because we all believe we're right. And so psychologically, people really suffer from that, because you go in, it's a little bit like when you have an argument. I remember once, there's a couple I love and know dearly who was standing by one of my bins, and the female of the couple said, no, do you remember? You didn't. And he said, yeah, I did. And she said, no, you didn't. I did. You didn't. And this went on for like over a minute. And I said, one of you's going to have to change the premise of that argument in order to come to some kind of conclusion. And she said, okay, it was this and that happened, and then that happened, and then that happened. And he went, oh yeah. We can't have the didn't argument, must, should, ought, could.
I do love a good conspiracy though.
Well, we do, because they're exciting, aren't they? And they're different, and they draw us in psychologically, and they're possible. I mean, Christ, there's nothing better than a really good film like National Treasure or whatever, or any of those Angels and Demons, when there's all these underworlds and there's all these things going on that we don't know about, and there are messages on every single dollar note that tells you to go somewhere else, that leads you to a treasure, or if it's not a treasure, it's a piece of information, or it's a secret group of people who lead, like Knights Templar and all different people that govern our lives. And if only we knew, and that this is the line of Jesus and this is the line of, we love it. It's exciting, it's different, and it draws us in.
Yeah,
there's a lot of proof.
I do it sometimes, like even if it's not even if I don't believe it, I like to just drop it in there in a group conversation, or just to see how people react, or how people, I love a good conversation. So if
you can have a debate, conversation and debate are important, but if they become absolute and we attack people, so like if we get a group of people that march into London saying like locking us down is ridiculous, like people just need to be allowed to die, they've also got a point. They've got a point in that. Well, you know, some people will die and some people won't. That's absolutely true. But for the people that live, we need to earn. But the problem is, we say we need to earn. If you listen to that statement, we need to earn. But that person is not then thinking they might be one of the people that's going to die, because that's not what we think either. So psychologically, it's interesting, and it's a very difficult debate to have, because people will adamantly hold on to their belief. And we have a confirmation bias and a few different biases that help us buy, that help us sell. You know, you're never sold to, you think you buy something out of choice. Oh, I debate that a lot of the time. You know, there's not as much choice as we think there is. I love one of the scenes in The Devil Wears Prada where she turns around and says to Andy, who isn't really an Andy, but if you ever watch the film, she says, "You think you chose that color? Let me tell you how you did," for her sweater. And it's that, and again, it's that sort of thing. And people are sold to on something called confirmation bias, but we look for our own bias in our own lives to say, see, this is because, you know, so when it comes to things like COVID, I'm already starting to think, well, I definitely had coronavirus last year. So would I have some antibodies? Would they be similar at all? I know I did, because I was in hospital for 5 days and I was tested. And none of that makes scientific sense, because actually coronavirus in and of itself is very much the common cold. Loads of us have had it. But it's amazing what you do in your head to make you okay and see it that way.
Yeah, it's the same as I was watching actually before we came on here. It was one of the governors or whatever talking in America where they were protesting, and he was just trying to say, like, I understand it, but you need to stop saying I, because it could be we that you kill me. So
Yeah.
someone outside could be protesting. Yes, they could go back to work, but then you could be the reason why I die. So they need to stop thinking about I and think of we and us.
That's really hard for people to do, though. You know, when people come into therapy, Carl Rogers talks about the 7 stages of therapy, therapeutic process. So when someone comes in, what they often say is they do the opposite. They say, well, you know, and this is the opposite. So this is interesting. So people say, well, we all do that. That's normal, isn't it? That's just the way the world is. We've got no power in that. And it's like, gosh, where's your autonomy? Where's your independence? Where's your accountability? And eventually what you want people to do is slowly but surely learn that they have a choice. One of my favorite expressions in therapy is, you may not be responsible for the hand of cards you've been dealt, but you are absolutely responsible for how you play them. Awful things happen to people a lot of the time. And why is it that that person comes out working, functioning, okay, and this person has a serious addiction to drugs, isn't okay, doesn't work? But then again, that's an interesting social classification. Why do I class this one as okay and this one as not? Because actually in other people's societies that might be completely okay. And it's a lot to do with trauma response and things. So people will use we when they don't want to take accountability, but when they believe they're right, they use I and me. And it's that disparity between the two is fascinating, because that's the way people function. Again, crazy.
Yeah, when you think about it like that, I've never really thought about it like that. The way you change.
We don't want to be responsible. Like, well, we all think, do we? What if you use the word I think, oh, now you're on the spot. However, also those people are arguing in huge groups. So they've got backup. They've got thousands of people having their back. So they're not alone. So they can say, I need to, what about me? I mean, most of those posters are saying things like, I need a haircut. That's an interesting priority, isn't it? We're talking about people's lives. I need a haircut.
Yeah,
And the conspiracy theorists, again, that those people aren't really nurses and doctors, they're actors and actresses hired. Again, fascinating. We'll find anything, any argument that helps us fight our corner. We will.
yeah, and then like you say, then that then becomes a conspiracy, because are these people that are protesting even real? Like, is it just that? And then it goes on and on and on, and then it'll be the media. The media will
I mean,
be.
let's start our own rumour, shall we? Should we put out there potentially that Trump hired them so that there's enough in each? So he's already given each state its own responsibility as to whether to open up or not, which is a bitch of a thing to do to a group of people. There was a really interesting interview with the mayor of, where was she? Was it Florida or that sort of area? I can't remember. I was watching it the other day and she was saying, no, Las Vegas, that's what it was. LA. No, Las Vegas. She wants Las Vegas open. And the guy was just, the poor interviewer just had his, literally,
Yeah, I've seen
This
the video. I've seen the video. It was last night. Yeah.
was it last night, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know, like, so you just want everything open?" Well, no, just the hotels. But then when she carried on, it was like, yeah, everything, because people aren't surviving, and the pressure is on government and it is on other people. After World War II, universal credit became a very different thing. People were looked after by the state so much more. The NHS, we built back up again. Lots of people, there was lots of help. Where it was founded and started, the NHS is a principle of caring for people and what we had to do. It was set in stone many years later in different ways. That the idea that this credit that we gave people on food rations, they were limited as to what they could buy and what they could do, and people managed, and we were looked after. Should we be? Shouldn't we be? Are we responsible for ourselves? It's just interesting. What does it all mean?
Yeah, I'm stupid at the moment because I'm so proud of what I'd built over the last 2 years or whatever that I am yet to sign on. And it's silly, like the tax credit, or it's just silly. I could just sign on. I keep kind of like you keep saying, telling yourself. I keep telling myself, it'll be a couple of weeks and we'll be okay, and I can live till then. And then I can be out the back of this and say, well, I didn't have to sign on, or I didn't have to get tax credit. And it's that telling yourself again, like you keep saying, like that.
Like, why is it so shaming for some people to sign on? Why is it so shaming to ask for help, to ask for a handout? And you can apply that one to cheer as well as psychology. People are really struggling. My daughter and I watched Stick It last night. Do you remember Stick It, the
Last
gymnastics
film, yeah,
film?
last
Yeah,
movie, yeah.
right. You name the gymnastics or the dance film, we've probably seen it in this family, and or any cheer film as well. And we were watching Stick It, and it just reminded me, she dropped out of the Olympics, this particular gymnast, if you haven't seen this film, and you find out the reason why halfway through the film, and she's just very angry, and she's not an okay young woman, and it's all about asking for help, and the gym coach eventually says, well, can I have some help working on my landings? And he says, sorry, I didn't hear you. Oh yeah, I want some help working on my landings. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, you did. And he went, I might have done, but tell me, I want some help working on my landings, or whatever it was that she said, because we've got to learn to ask for help. We can't read each other's minds. So in situations like this, where people are in a bad way, be it health-wise or anything else as well, we've got old people stuck in old people's homes and old people dying because people aren't asking for help. I don't feel well is an okay statement. But again, that British culture comes in of push through, get back up, fight through, stiff upper lip. If somebody's got a really bad mental block, or somebody's not feeling okay, somebody feels awful about Worlds not being able to go, or not being able to be at Summit, or not being anywhere else at the moment, the disappointment we feel is shocking. And that's because we have expectations. When you expect something, like if you've expected, like, my business has been okay, it's working, I'm doing well, great. I didn't expect to be here. No one expected this. So we're all going to have to eat a little bit of humble pie and maybe ask for some help. Maybe it's over finances. Maybe it's over a food package. I'm in theory, I can get a free box of food every week. I'm not asking for that. I don't want that. I've got enough money to buy my own food. I'm okay for the time being. Do I know I'm going to be okay forever? No, I don't. We just don't know. So we need to get rid of our pride a little bit and say, actually, I might need some help. I'm not saying you don't, but let's say you don't have enough money for decent food. Well, decent food, fresh food, also make sure your immune system's good. Also make sure you're getting all the vitamins and minerals that you need, the nutrition that you need. It's a good idea to stay healthy right now.
Yeah, so many people aren't taking that like seriously, as in like they think it's just stay at home, don't touch, wash hands and stuff. Like it's like first line of defense is get that immune system up.
I work with Brighton Hove Football Club, and I had a stand-up row in a meeting with one of their nutritionists, who is an expert nutritionist, but who was dealing with one of my clients who had a severe eating disorder and played football. And we needed a very different approach. They were very much about supplements, do this, do that, keep eating healthy. And I was like, nah, their anorexia is so bad that if we don't lift them to a certain level, there's potential there for them needing eventually. I mean, the most I've had an anorexic on by the end of their, well, it's part of the process, is 6,500 calories a day. to try and get them up because they're not putting on weight. Their system is so damaged that, you know, they have thermogenic responses, they don't feel well, they have all sorts of things going on. And we see it in cheer as well. You know, you have to up the calories slowly but surely, but the bloating someone feels, the amount of energy needed for somebody in sports, they need more calories than somebody who is just having a sedentary lifestyle. And that's why a lot of gymnasts, a lot of cheer people, a lot of coaches can eat a load of rubbish because they're super fit already, because they also eat good stuff on top. And if a child watches that and copies, and then they get bigger, or they don't look at how they're eating, and food is a big obsession for a lot of people in lockdown. You know, it's a time to get fit and healthy, or it's a time to put on 4 stone because you're overeating, whatever it is. It's a big obsession. People are baking. You couldn't buy yeast for ages. People are baking a lot. And so you have to watch. Nutrition is part of wholeness. I went to see Ruby Wax. My sister took me as a birthday present a couple of years ago. So she does the same job as I do now. What she's qualified, I don't know if she actually does it, but she's a comedian, but she also does, she's a therapist. That's what she does. Very similar qualifications to me, very similar process. And she does a Q&A at the end. And the amount of people that said to her, well, I found, you know, when I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and I got super fit, that's cured my depression. Or somebody says, well, I did this diet and it cured my depression. And I felt her eyes roll in her head because I hear that a lot. They are part of the defense. They are part of a solution. They are not the only one. Like, depression is there for a reason, for lots of very good reasons, often repression of anger, repression of different things. And good food will help you. And good exercise will help you. But it's like a triangle, it's like a tripod. In order to get there, you also have to look at what's going on psychologically, because depression is a psychological illness. It is not brought on by eating bad food. However, if you eat enough bad food for long enough, you might feel depressed because everything else in your life will start to change. If you are 38 stone, you can't get up out of a chair, you can't do things properly, you are going to end up with all sorts of, you know, other health conditions and things. The same as if you're 6 stone, you're going to end up being very ill and very frail and not able to do stuff, and massive likelihood of breakages or snapping, and your mood. I mean, anorexia is one of the only things that actually physically changes the brain, that and PTSD. So nutrition is important, it's part of it, but it's part of a whole systemic approach, I think, a holistic approach.
Like, I was just, the main point I'm trying to get at is like the immune system to fight this COVID. If we need to fight all the flus that are going about, then people just aren't taking the things they can do themselves. They can sleep well, they can do a little bit of exercise, and they can eat a little bit better. Not like, take this supplement, do this, do that, boost your immune system. I don't believe in any conspiracy things like that. Eat this pill and you're going to be fine in a day and all that stuff.
Do I take a red pill or a blue pill? Up or down? Where do I go?
Like you were saying though, it is hard. It is hard to not, because I found myself, you know, drinking a little bit more, probably not working out nowhere near as much as I used to. And it's easy to slip into that cycle. But people need to understand that those things, like you said earlier, they lead to bad sleep. Then bad sleep leads to bad eating. Then bad eating leads to more bad sleep. Then it leads to wanting to drink, and then drinking leads to bad sleep. And then what big vicious cycle, and then depression and whatever's at the end of it.
Yeah. Very much so. I mean, it's interesting around sleep, because kids need a hell of a lot more sleep than adults. And actually, with all the research that's there, really, school should start a little bit later. Teenagers really suffer. They definitely need more sleep, and they prefer to sleep a little later if you read and watch and listen to.
Yeah, there's a great experiment in America where they opened a school later, and the grades went up. But I can't remember how they grade in America, but the grades went up. And then also the car accident deaths went down because parents were getting an hour extra in bed too. I was like, oh.
Well, the problem is, it's our systems are very set, aren't they? They're very based. You know, if you go back to original sleep patterns hundreds of years ago, people didn't have one chunk of sleep. So what we did is we went to sleep as kind of dusk came down. It varied through times as well, through seasons. But people would sleep and then wake up in the middle of the night, and they would do things like have social time with their neighbors, or have social time with their family, or play a game, or do something. Or if they were couples, they would have sex, and then they would go back to sleep until they were ready for work. It's quite a modern thing to have one shift of sleep. But what we do know is that there's these little things in your brain called glials that that clean your brain out after around about 7 hours. So we know that 7 hours is a good idea, because it just, a little bit like those birds on top of hippos that just, glials work within us. They clear up your brain. And if you watch the film Inside Out, which is a great film about psychology in the brain, it's a Disney film and it's a cool film.
Well,
and actually, if you know about brains, it teaches it. You're like, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is. But there's a point when there's a little Hoover going around going, in the brain when sadness and joy are walking around and trying to get something sorted. And they're glials. They clean our brain at a certain point when we hit around 7 hours sleep. That's what they do. It's good for us. The same as eating is good for us. There are lots of theories on diets, and I teach other people about eating disorders, and people shouldn't go and see a normal therapist for eating disorders. They're so complex. Like I just said, they are one of the things that actually changes a brain. An anorexic brain isn't quite the same as I hate the word normal, but a more neurotypical type brain. So it becomes atypical. It's a little different, the way it processes thoughts and what happens. There's some great TED Talks on this as well that people can look up. So trying to say to someone, well, you just need to eat this, doesn't work. We have to work with our brain, and sleep heals our brain. It's an older fashioned expression, isn't it? Sleep heals, and it does. It also gets us through a chunk of time to the next time when we can start to feel better and start to feel good. So brains are really important, and we feed them, and on average your brain needs a carbohydrate every 20 seconds. Now, as in sugar, the way it changes and what happens, that doesn't mean you have to eat every 20 seconds. That would be ridiculous, but we need to feed our brains.
Yeah, your body your brain can take it where it needs to take it.
And so we can function and work. The way we feel pain, the way it feeds up through the bottom, the dorsal fin, and the spine, and where it feeds up and where it goes. And eating well helps with that. Sleeping well helps with that. Having a good mental process helps with all of those things, especially when that very old part of our brain starts to take over and we panic. If we've got a good system in place, we start to feel better. However, some people, like you were saying earlier, yeah, but if you're fit and healthy, like that really fit and healthy guy, he died, didn't he? We see fit and healthy people die sometimes from unusual things, and that's more unusual. I mean, there are underlying conditions killing a lot of people with COVID. That comes into it too. And also, you hear about people like, there's the extremity, isn't it? There's a car crash, there's an accident, there's a heart attack. But why a heart attack? Was there something underlying? What happened? But of course, the cleaner we can eat, the better we can be, the better it is for us. I can't talk. I'm overweight. I really cannot talk. And I don't do enough exercise and whatever. I'm not completely unfit as such, but I am, given my weight and my size and my proportions. So we've all got stuff going on. It's a question of what and how we deal with it and what it means. And I mean, that said, I eat really well. I just eat way too much and extra on top, and I really like it.
Snap. Snap. And I like a drink.
I don't drink, interestingly. I don't tend to drink alcohol. I think the doctors think I'm lying whenever I have some kind of checkup, because I'll say, no, I don't drink or smoke. And they say, well, you don't drink. And I say, well, that's why, how many units do you have a week? And I said, no, I've probably had 4 units last year. And that's what we should be teaching. Again, when it comes to alcohol, we should be teaching kids about units and what units mean, not about a drink, because people don't understand alcohol, how it works. They don't understand, if you look at alcohol in and of itself as a drug, the effort, how it works in alcohol is interesting, because if I gave you a shot of alcohol and I gave you a shot of heroin, and we compare the impact of the two on the body and the way that it works, you would not be drinking alcohol.
Knowing how much I know how important sleep is, and how drugs and alcohol can affect your sleep with not letting you go into your full deep sleep, and the reason why you feel rough the next day is, like, 1, dehydration, and 2, because you actually haven't been to sleep. I was talking about this on a podcast with a dance teacher yesterday, and she showed her app, and the night she drank, she had 6.5 hours sleep, and the night before I spoke to her, she'd had 8.5 hours sleep, and she hadn't drank for 2 days. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, my bags are going from under my eyes. I'm like, yeah, wait, that's not alcohol like causing that just yet. It's the fact that you haven't slept properly because of the alcohol. You've got bags under your eyes. And she was like, oh, and I explained the whole where you don't dip into. And I think people forget that as well. And in this time, we need to be not just like, oh, well, I've ate a pear and an apple and a greens today. They need to think about the things they can do by getting good sleep. And if alcohol every night is causing bad sleep, then their immune system.
Alcohol every night will cause bad sleep. It's also a depressant, it really is. And people say, no, but it frees me. No, what happens in the brain, if you think about Men in Black, the film, and the principle of like a Skynet, a principle all over our planet saving us from aliens, alcohol just goes and disintegrates our protection system. So we take risks. That's why we feel more free, because alcohol depresses our system so much. So people talk about, I was really vomiting and that's your body trying to get rid of poison. You are poisoning yourself. And then, the next point after that, after you passing out, is death. Those are your stages. So alcohol is just a very freely used drug, and it's got a lot of, and don't get me wrong, the odd glass of wine, the odd glass of something, there are health benefits, it's good things to do. A bottle of wine every night, not so sure. It impacts your sleep, it impacts your wellness, it impacts your immune system, and because of sleep, it also depresses your brain. So you may start to do things differently, like not sleep as well, or eat different things and not cope. So where are we going today? What on earth have we covered?
This is amazing. I don't care. We're going to have to jump onto our actual bit that we were going to go on to another day, because we've done nearly 50 minutes, but
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's good. It's good. It's been good chat.
Well, it's nice. I love my subject, and I think, it can apply to I love my subject, and it can apply to so many things in life. It covers every part of us as human beings, psychology. It really does. The impact on sleep and all of those things, psychologically caused, psychological impact. If you're not sleeping well or you're not feeling good, it just leads to patterns. I work with sleep hygiene. I work with so many things as part of the work that I do with people, whether it's addicts, whether it's people who are stressed. It comes on, it just covers everything. With everything you buy, everything you do, all based on your mind, your thoughts, and how you see life.
Well, yeah. So like when you have a bad night's sleep, you can, for the rest of the day, people say, oh, I'm grumpy, get on the wrong side of the bed. No, you're like, it's not depression, but it's that same, what the lack of sleep, alcohol, bad food is doing on your mind is putting you into that grumpy state. And if you're in that grumpy state for, I don't know how long it is, but a few months or a few weeks because of bad sleep, of course that could go to depression, right? And lead to other health issues.
Oh, it can lead to all sorts of things, not just depression. Sleep deprivation is one of the most effective torture devices known to man. It was well known that Japanese prisoners of war, were subject to sleep deprivation and games around sleep, because you will give up everything at some point if you're sleep deprived. You cannot function, you don't make good decisions, and then bad decisions have consequences, and bad life choices have consequences. I can't deal with it and I can't work with it,
Awesome. Let's wrap that up there then. That has been an hour of absolute waffle, but good waffle. Interesting waffle.
All right, lovely. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. See you later, Deb.
Bye.